You're watching TV 41 Macon.
Staying up later, another reach into the archives tonight, and the topic is film directors. Among those we'll see in this half hour, Oscar winners Sidney Pollack and Oliver Stone, Tim Burton, Martha Coolidge, Lawrence Kasdan. Let's start with Pollack, who defines himself.
I do what I do because I can't do anything else. I couldn't do it well. I have always tried to make the kind of movies that I wanted to see as an audience. And those are not necessarily highly cultured movies the way, I mean, I've never made art films of any kind. I've often thought about it and wished that I were the kind of director who could do that, but I don't think it's anything that I would be particularly good at. I function better when I'm making a movie that's the kind of movie that appeals to my own fantasy on some level, and I don't know how to explain what that is. You know, I think everybody gets self-critical at one time or another and says, geez, the grass always seems a little greener. You say, geez, I don't care whether the movie makes millions of dollars. I really just want this one to be a great artistic success. But you can't do anything about that. I mean, I think making a film is a little bit like taking a Rorschach test. You can't hide who you are or what you are. You know, you can't say, I'm now going to make a tender, lyrical movie. You can't. It'll be tender and lyrical if you have tenderness and lyricism in you. Otherwise, it won't. If you gave 5 guys the identical love scene to direct with the identical actors, you would get 5 different kinds of love scenes. You would get a very adolescent love scene, you'd get a very comical love scene, you'd get a very erotic love scene, you'd get a very romantic love scene, but they wouldn't be the same. You just sort of can't help revealing who you are in the choices that you make, because all it is a series of choices, hundreds and hundreds of choices. Do you put your hand up at this moment? Is the room dark? Is the camera always moving? Is it still? Do they look at one another? Are you on their backs? Is there music? Is there no music? Is there the sound of dripping water? Is there just the sound of their breath? Do you cut the dialogue? Do you add more dialogue? You're just making thousands of choices. And every time you make a choice, that part of your character that's making the choice gets revealed in some way. So I can't do anything better or worse than what I do. I do it because I can't help it. I can't take any credit for it or any blame for it.
You've been around the movie world for a while as a writer, but the first film you directed was Body Heat. Did it surprise you how quickly directing came to you?
There was a moment of surprise, but I think it had to do with, I had been writing for almost 10 years at that point, and writing screenplays and thinking about movies. I had been watching movies seriously for almost 15 years then, and kind of obsessively. When I was at the University of Michigan, I was seeing, you know, 7, 8, 10 movies a week. So I had been thinking about movies, writing movies, studying literature, thinking about what I would do if I had a chance for a long time before the first day of shooting on Body Heat. And it was odd, but when I walked on the set, and I expected to be kind of terrified, there was none of that. It was a kind of odd calm, as though I had come home. I had been wanting it for a long time, and when it was there, it felt right. And I've had many moments I've directed 6 films, when you don't know what you're doing, when you're worried that everyone will discover you don't know what you're doing, when you're just confused and worried about the project. But for the most part, I've had this very pleasant feeling of, this is the work that I'm supposed to do.
What are your demons, as you see them? What's knocking around inside of you? And I don't say that as an accusation. We all have them. What demons are knocking around inside of you that somehow you've got to exorcise or come to terms with?
I thought this was a half-hour show. This is like torture. What demons? Listen, I think I've certainly worked, I've been able, through my work, to work out a lot of them. I got out of a lot of the Vietnam stuff. And I think with the Kennedy thing, you know, I think, you know, what did Morrison say? The band you love to hate? You know, that it seems like somebody said in one of these things, the auteur you love to hate. I don't know why, but it just seems like my films do provoke a lot of hatred and loathing and tremendous reactions, like right off the bat.
Do you enjoy
so obviously, you know, maybe there's some kind of purpose that I'm serving as a magnet, as a lightning rod or something that attracts this anger. But those are demons. That's what I'm trying to say. Well, you know, I think that I was always a little perverse when I was young. I always think that I had a lot of self-loathing and a lot of self-hatred. I think I had actually a very low self-esteem factor in school, and I still do in some ways. And I think that I expect to be attacked and expect to be, you know, I don't know why. It's just a strange thing.
This seems so obvious, whether it's Pee-wee's Big Adventure, whether it's Edward Scissorhands living in a Gothic castle. They try to bring him back to some bland suburban area. Seems like things are going okay, but then ultimately he can't fit in and he flees back. But whatever it is, I mean, these, to some extent, these guys are projections of you, right?
From Pee-wee on, they all the characters are characters I identify with and are very personal to me, even though they're in the context of a studio thing. And you know, movies I find to be too hard to do unless you can personalize them. I mean, I've never felt incredibly technically proficient and technically like I could, sure, I'll do a Western, you know, like, and go out and do a great Western or anything.
I don't see you as John Ford.
No, I can't. No, I mean, it would be really a bad movie. And so everything has meant something to me. So you know, you personalize everything, and even though it's not necessarily direct, there are themes and issues in everything. See, people, the movies look so ridiculous and look so absurd and cartoony that some of that gets lost a little bit sometimes. But for me, they mean quite a lot, you know.
Is childhood where you feel safe? Even if it's a twisted,
you know,
humorous, exaggerated childhood?
I've always responded, you know, there's that whole dynamic and that whole thing that I've heard people say, which I actually don't like. That whole thing about the child within, I've always found to be kind of stunted and retarded in a way, in the sense of, well, the point being, people say that sometimes as a way to, I find that negative. I find that connotation negative because, you know, you don't want to remain in this little world in a way, because, you know, you want to experience everything in a way, and there's things as an adult which you can do and want to do that you don't do as a child. And I think it has more to do with maintaining. I remember when, you know, I like to draw, and everybody when they're young can draw. What happens is that it seems to get beaten out of people. It's like, at what point does that change? You know, what point do people say, oh, I can't draw and stuff? And I think that it's the culture, and people go, you know, oh, you got to learn how to draw, and you got to learn the correct way to do things. And I find that what you want to do is just maintain a vision of the world where everything is still interesting and not getting... So if that aspect of you remains, which it's there when you're young, then definitely. But you know, I don't want to, you know, ride on swing sets and, you know, go, you know.
You've done some mainstream films that are of a pretty wide spectrum. Valley Girl, Lost in Yonkers, Rambling Rose. But prior to that, you did a number of documentary films. Mm-hmm. And at least two of them, the one about rape and the one about your grandmother, about as personal as these things can get, right?
I think all films are personal.
Sure, on some level.
Yeah, I mean,
but they're not necessarily autobiographical.
No, but one of the things, you know, in creative writing in high school, you know, they taught you to write about what you know. If you write about what you know, you're on sure ground and you can explore. And I took that to filmmaking, and frankly, I didn't have enough money to go and do a fiction film where you have to build the set and create the costumes and invent the world and invent the characters. That costs a lot of money. But to go out and find a fascinating story that had meaning that you could depict in a narrative way, which is what my documentaries did, I would pick a subject and explore that subject and reveal the character of that person. Even though I'd come from theater, where I directed plays with actors, I found documentary to be a most dramatic format, and that's how I used it.
How personally therapeutic was it for you?
Well, I think that film is always therapeutic, and I keep saying this, but I really am serious. I think that a director shouldn't take a film unless it has a theme that is deeply personal, as in Rose or as in Yonkers for me. And same with actors, shouldn't really play roles unless those roles are deeply personal, so that in a sense, that film is no more or less personal, even though the story is an identifiable, documented story of my own. And so as you explore in detail this experience, it is therapeutic. But that also happens with a fiction story that has emotional basis in your own life. It's the same thing.
I think this is the best job in the world, being a filmmaker and a director, because you get to enter these worlds. And, you know, I had been a fan of Westerns for years. My brother and I had loved them together, and we wrote Silverado together. And then you suddenly find yourself out in New Mexico, you know, for 5 months with 500 head of cattle, you know, and 200 horses and cowboys and holsters and 6 guns. And it's everything that you dreamed about doing and playing with.
Hey! Come on, Jake, let's go.
I'm interested in big pictures. I mean, some of my favorite pictures are enormous pictures. Lawrence of Arabia, you know, Seven Samurai. I think I'll be doing some pictures like that soon. But I think what really happened was that I was writing in an effort to become a director. And the first scripts that I wrote that sold got the attention of Steven Spielberg. And he introduced me to George Lucas. And they asked me to write Raiders. They had this idea for an adventure film, and I spent about 6 months working on Raiders of the Lost Ark. And when I finished it, I took it up to give it to George in Marin County, and he said that Lee Brackett, who was writing The Empire Strikes Back, had just died, and would I come in and work on that? And I said, you know, don't you want to read the script I've just brought you first? He said, well, I just get a feeling about people. But if I read the script tonight and I hate it, I'll call you up tomorrow and cancel this offer. But he didn't call. He loved the script, and he was happy with Raiders. So I wound up working unexpectedly for George Lucas for about a year and a half, making these very large movies. Mm-hmm. But the scripts that had gotten his attention were small movies. They were a romance, Continental Divide, long before it was made, and Body Heat. And I think that I've always been interested in human scale projects. But a picture like Lawrence, which is an enormously big picture, is really a human picture too. And I guess if I do make a big picture, it'll have at its heart human issues, you know.
The competition included more than 100 of the world's best cars. But in the end, only one was judged a car ahead. Motor Trend's Import Car of the Year, the new Accord from Honda.
These are all good cleaners, but did you know that not one of them disinfects? So you don't get your home totally clean until you use Lysol deodorizing cleaner. Lysol cleans and kills germs without any extra effort. Germs can be anywhere, so don't do part of the job. Lemon Fresh Lysol deodorizing cleaner cleans and disinfects.
Lysol spray use number 134, stopping that grungy mildew before it starts. Lysol disinfectant spray. There's nothing this can can't do.
Drixoral is. Sudafed isn't. Drixoral is. Tavis D isn't. Drixoral is the only cold medicine that relieves the sneezing, stuffiness, plus the aches and pains of a cold for 12 full hours. Drixoral. Isn't that better?
It's the same, and it's different. It's new Hershey's Hugs. Hugs are mini Hershey's Kisses hugged by white chocolate. New Hershey's Hugs. P.S. Hugs also come with almonds.
On the next Live with Regis and Kathy Lee. We'll catch up with former designing woman Delta Burke. Plus, a stand-up comic who's really standing on his own, Living Singles John Hinton.
I'm sorry, but shouldn't your husband be fixing that?
Well, maybe your husband's not handy like you.
And Rosemary Clooney with a song in her heart.
For the memory.
On the next Live.
Friday at 9 a.m. on TV 41.
On the list of Tim Burton's credits, you'll find the Batman films, Beetlejuice, and Edward Scissorhands. Here's Tim Burton from a couple of years ago.
I read where you said that being a storyteller isn't really your greatest strength. It's all about mood and atmosphere and look and attitude, and maybe that's why Batman was successful, because even though you took some liberties and imposed your own vision upon it, the structure of a narrative is already there.
Yeah.
So that gives you some strength in an area where you don't come to it with as much natural strength.
Well, I mean, it's the one criticism I always get, and not just from people. It's like there's no story. I mean, I keep hearing that from every movie I ever do, and it's never bothered me. But when you keep hearing something, it's like, well, come on, give me a break. I mean, there's other people that are wonderful storytellers, and that's great. I mean, in some ways that's what movies are all about, but there should be opportunities to not have things be so literal and not necessarily not necessarily have everything be told in the most literal, straightforward way. I mean, I think people are always bemoaning the state of movies and how studios are churning out the same kind of thing all the time. And for me, a lot of it has to do in terms of when you read criticism of films here, it's like they're all pushing for the same thing, it seems. And I don't know. It just seems to me everything would be a lot better if the framework could open up a bit more and not be so intense, have everything be spelled out so clearly.
I don't suggest that you're on a crusade, but in your own small way, as part of the consideration when you do a Grand Canyon, when you do an Accidental Tourist, let me do something that really doesn't have a chance to be the blockbuster hit. It's got to be a commercial success, or at least you hope so, but let me carve out a little area here that maybe is a marriage between a modern sensibility and some of what you were talking about an earlier era.
Well, I don't think I'm alone in feeling. I mean, I know that I have friends and contemporaries who feel the same slight disjunction between the thing that brought them into filmmaking, all the ways that you could be satisfied by the work and the great films that you saw, and the current obsession with huge financial success. Because there is some conflict. Now, you can have wonderful movies, a movie like Rain Man, it makes an enormous amount of money, Dances with the Wolves. Mm-hmm. They're not exclusive of each other by any means. But there is a strong drive to make certain kinds of movies that will appeal to the widest possible audience. And, but the thing that drew us into filmmaking were films that never would have had a chance to have that kind of base. So is it a crusade? No, you're right, it's not a crusade. But I think there's a natural inclination to want to do the best possible work. And that is sometimes in conflict with an atmosphere in Hollywood, which is about not the best possible work, but the most popular work. Sometimes the best work is not popular. It's challenging. It's disturbing. Sometimes a great movie ends, and you feel bad. And that idea is anathema to Hollywood in the last 10 years. There's an obsession with sending people out whistling and feeling good.
Right.
And marking their...
Testing things on audiences.
Cards. Yeah. I've stopped doing that because I think it was having a terrible effect on me, and I think it's had a horrible effect on movies.
As you shoot a scene, what are you looking at? What's going on through your eyes?
What I'm watching for is the truth in the moment and that electricity that happens between performers that that is the magic of the moment that you're trying to capture on film.
Are there similarities, you think, between directing and other professions? I don't know if you're a sports fan, but do you ever put yourself in the coach or the manager's position and think that there may be some sort of overlap in the psychology and what's required to do that?
Oh, I think there are many, of course. I mean, there are similarities in the sense that part of your job is an understanding of the technical process of the game or the acting. Part of your job is an understanding of the psychological forces that are at play, so that a great deal of your job is to, in a sense, set up an atmosphere where the individual functions at his or her highest level.
Sometimes the best coach is not the guy who knows the most X's and O's or the most intricacies of the game, but simply allows talented people to do what they do best.
That's exactly right. Exactly. I mean, in that sense, I think it would be like any managerial position where technical skill is required, but where the state of mind of the performer or the actor out is critical to how well they do. You know, so you're sort of responsible for both.
Your burden is great, but your shoulders are strong, for you are the business traveler. You persevere much and endure all with but one request.
Just don't make me wait for a doggone rental car.
Budget hears you, road warrior. With Budget Express, you march straight to your car, and Budget Express is free. A great deal on a great car is waiting for you. Oh, business traveler, now more than ever, the smart money is on budget.
If you hate the taste of cough syrup, throw in the spoon. Introducing Drixoral Cough Liquid Caps. Each one's concentrated to give you 8 hours of relief with no bad taste. New Drixoral Cough Liquid Caps. Isn't that better?
Everybody needs some money somehow.
When you need to send money fast, only Western Union lets you send it from home.
Hello?
Rita. Just call 1-800-CALL-CASH. Western Union, the fastest way to send money.
Wow, could you believe the last Wheel of Fortune? Bill won this beautiful new Blazer by solving this bonus round puzzle. Now, here's your chance to play along at home. Thing is the category. This puzzle could really light your fire. We'll be back in a moment.
It's a wild, wild Vicky.
Join animal rights activists Jim Fowler, Betty White, Stephanie Powers, Christina Melandro, and a few of their untamed friends.
Actually, I have not seen this much petting since Madonna's last video.
From fat cats and extra-large lizards to powerful pythons and huge hawks.
And what do they eat? Anything they want. Wild animals and the people who love them on the next Vicky.
Friday at 10 on TV 41.
Did you solve the puzzle?
Spark plugs.
Yeah, that was, some lucky contestant may walk away $25,000 richer if they can solve the next bonus round puzzle only on America's Game, Wheel of Fortune.
Friday at 7 on TV 41.
Martha Coolidge's work includes the film version of Lost in Yonkers, Rambling Rose, and Valley Girl. Here's part of my conversation with Martha from about a year ago.
What do you think people believe they're buying when they buy you?
Well, I think certainly in the recent last few years, I'm looked at as an actor's director, and I love actors, and I will always concentrate on character. And I think that whatever story I'm dealing with, whether it tends to be a darker story or a lighter story, they range from, Valley Girl to Rambling Rose or whatever, I think there's always sort of a sense of humor and a sense of love of people and stories of moral or human courage.
How would you describe your films? And we've taken a stab at it in the last couple of half hours that we spent, more about image.
Enchanting.
Enchanting.
A light run. No, what, exhilarating. One of the best movies of the year. I don't know.
that little single word that comes from a sentence that actually reads like this. Tim Burton thinks he is clever, but he is really a bore. Clever. Richard Corliss, Time Magazine.
Exactly.
Right?
Let's just put it this way: when you look at the reviews and the ads of Vine, you will see a lot of dots between the words. You know what I mean? It was a great movie. In other words, they're really trying to, much like you'll have to do with this interview in a way, But I don't know. You know, I don't know. I haven't done that many, I guess. And I don't try to analyze it in a way, because I never want to get to a point where I'm going, oh, yeah, let's do the Beetlejuice thing, you know, or let's do, you know, I tell you, what do we give them tonight? You know, let's do this or that. I try to keep it, not analyze it in that way, and just try to see what happens from project to project.
No little cinnamon gum freshens breath longer than Big Red.
So kiss a little longer, hug a little longer, stay close a little longer, longer with Big Red. That Big Red freshness lasts right through it. Your fresh breath goes on and on. While you chew and say goodbye a little longer, make it last a little longer. Give your breath long-lasting freshness with Big Red.
This was my cold yesterday. Yuck. And then I saw something about...
Sudafed cold and cough liquid caps.
It's new.
Not even a prescription medicine gives you more complete non-drowsy relief of cold symptoms.
Not even a prescription.
It relieves chest congestion, coughing, fever.
All of which I had. So I had to get some, which I did. Now I'm better. And now I'm out of here.
New Sudafed cold and cough liquid caps. No prescription gives you more complete non-drowsy relief.
It works.
500 years of British tradition undone by a single American chocolate bar.
Can I see what's running the universe here at the planetarium?
Our little remote controller, and it runs by one 9-volt Duracell battery.
And that'll last how long?
Forever. They really do last a long time.
Well, forever is a big concept. I mean, that's like...
Well, I work in these cosmic verities.
Duracell. No other battery lasts longer.
On the next MASH.
Are you sure there's nothing going on between you two kids?
Honest.
Little hanky-panky after taps?
I'm happily married.
Oh, yeah?
BJ comforts a nurse whose marriage is failing.
Bad news from home?
It's a letter from my old man. Dear Jane.
Will it end up costing BJ his marriage?
Aren't you looking at the guy that fell off the Fidelity wagon?
On MASH.
Friday at 11 on TV 41.
Also on the list of directors who visited later, Robert Altman, John Sayles, John Frankenheimer, Paul Mazursky, Peter Bogdanovich. And I'd show you portions of those shows, but we're out of time. See you Monday.
Cosby's back in a world premiere mystery.
All of our suspects are dying.
Bill Cosby as you've never seen him before in The Cosby Mysteries, NBC Monday.